Okay, we are rolling right along to lesson 7. We are talking about rates, average, and measures of central tendency, and your objectives are to solve problems involving rates and solve problems involving measures of central tendency. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our fun fact of the day. And your fun fact of the day is that a giraffe can clean its ears with its 21-inch tongue. So that's an interesting tidbit. A giraffe can clean its ears with its own tongue. Alright, let's get going with some of the examples. Example 1, Heather finished the 100-kilometer bike race in 4 hours. What was her average speed in kilometers per hour? Okay, well, kilometers per hour means, it's a fancy way of saying kilometers divided by hours. Okay, split those kilometers up into how many hours there are, and kilometers per hour means per 1 hour. So we're just going to take 100 kilometers and divide it by the 4 hours it took her. Okay, and 100 divided by 4, well, that's 25. And then we can write this a couple ways. We can put kilometers per hour. Okay, we could write 25 kilometers per hour. Okay, either one of those would be alright. I like this one just because it leaves it the way that we looked at it before. So again, that means how many kilometers per 1 hour. And let's go ahead and go to example 2. Example 2 says, traveling at an average rate of 58 miles per hour, how long would it take a car to travel 20 miles? There's a key word on here. It's about. Okay? About how long. That means they want us to estimate this. Okay? Well, if we're going 58 miles every 1 hour, and they want to know how long would it take us to travel 20 miles. Okay, and how much time would it take us to do that? Well, I know it says about, so I'm going to go ahead and round off. 58 miles is about 60 miles. Okay, that's about 60 miles per hour. Okay, well, I know 1 hour is 60 minutes. Okay, so this is traveling about 60 miles every 60 minutes. Well, that's good news to know, because that means it's about 1 mile every minute. About. Okay, well, if it's 1 mile every minute, and I want to know how long it's going to take to travel 20 miles, that means it's going to take about 20 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to put the word about because they allowed me to round. Now that's just me using my number sense. Okay, it's going to take me about 20 minutes if I'm going 58 miles per hour, because that's about 60 miles every hour. 60 minutes an hour, that's about a mile every minute. Okay, so it's going to take about 20 minutes. And let's go ahead and move on to our next example. Okay, in example 3 it says that we are given some home prices here. And these are listed, this is 12 different homes, and I've given a graph of it there. Okay, so what this is home prices in thousands of dollars. So the graph here makes it really nice kind of to see just kind of how they're spread out. Numbers between the 170s and 180s are right here. How many are between the 180s and 190s? Okay, otherwise it doesn't do us a whole lot of good, okay, to represent that here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the list of numbers to do most of this, and we're going to find the mean, the median, and the mode of the data. Real quick, we have to review what those means, or what each of those mean. Well, the mean, remember, is the average. That's where you take them all up or add them all up and divide by how many numbers there are. Okay, and then the median, well, that one was just the middle number, and that's after you put them all in order from smallest to largest. Okay, and then the mode is the one that you see the most often in the list, the one that's the most occurring at all those. Now typically when I do these, I usually like to do the mode first because that's the easiest, and then I do the mean because that's the next easiest, and then the mean I usually save for last because that's the most work. Okay, for the sake of space and work here, I'm going to just do them in order. Alright, now the very first thing that I need to do is put them in order from smallest to largest. Now, even though it's in thousands of dollars, I'm going to go ahead and just use these numbers to do all my calculations to make it easier, and take this part into account when I write my answers. So, when I make my list, I see only one number that's at 170. Nothing's lower than that. That's the lowest. I have two other numbers in the 170s. They're right here, 175 and 175. Notice I'm crossing off my list as I go. That way I make sure I used all the numbers. Okay, no other numbers in the 170s. Let's jump to the 180s. I see 181, and then 183, and then 185, and then 187. And that's it for the 180s. Then the 190s, I see 191, and I see 195, and that's it. And then I'm going to the 200s. I see 208, and I see 209, and then I see 219. Now again, I should make sure that all those numbers are written down. I have them all crossed out. Well, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 numbers, and here there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 numbers. Alright, so that's a good thing. Now, when we find the mean, remember that's the average. That means I want to add them all up and divide by how many numbers there are. So the first thing I'm going to do, this seems like calculator work, so I'm going to use a calculator to go ahead and add up all of these numbers. And when I do that, I get I need to subtract my pen, 2,278. And then I need to divide that total by how many numbers there are. Well, we said there's 12 total numbers. And when I divide that by 12, I get an answer that's 189.8333, so it's the 3 that repeats. So I'm going to go ahead, since it's in thousands of dollars, I think it makes sense to round this, okay, off to the nearest whole number. If it tells you to round to the nearest tenth or something like that, then you need to make sure you pay attention to that. But if it doesn't tell you, I'm going to just round this. So again, I got on this 189.83 repeating. So I'm just going to say that's about 190. And now remember, this was in thousands of dollars. So I need to put $190,000. So that's the average home price. Okay, if I add them all up and divide by how many there are. Alright, then the median. Okay, I'm going to skip that one and save it because that involves crossing out some numbers and things like that. So I'm going to go to the mode first and just look for the one that occurs the most. Well, I'm looking on that list going, the only one that occurs more than once is 175. Since it occurs twice, that's more than everything else. So that's $175,000 for the mode of the home prices. Okay, now if every single number on here only appeared once, then the answer would be no mode. If every single number appeared twice, the answer would be no mode. If they all appear the same amount of times, the answer is no mode. Okay, there can be 2 modes or 3 modes. If 175 occurred twice, and so did 170, then both of those would be the mode, and I'd be expected to write both of those down. Okay, so just some quick reminders there about how when we find the mode, that kind of stuff is important to take note. Alright, the median is the middle number. Okay, now what I like to do is I just like to figure out how many numbers there are. Well, there's 12 numbers. That means that the 6th number, if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, this is my spot that's right in the middle here, almost, okay? Because I see 5 below it, but then I'm looking at, if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's 5 below it and 6 above it. That means I have 2 middle numbers. My middle numbers are right here, okay? Because there's 5 below and 5 above. So these are the 2 middle numbers right there. When I have 2 middle numbers, oh, by the way, before I do that, again, some people like to cross off. We like to cross off the lowest and then the highest and then the lowest and then the highest until we get to the middle where they meet. Okay? Now, if there's 1 middle number here, that would be the median, okay, on its own. But when there's 2 middle numbers, I have to add those up and then divide by 2. Okay, because there's 2 numbers. I have to find the average of those, the mean of those. So I'm going to take 185 plus 187 and add those up, and that's 372. And then I need to divide that by 2, and that's going to be 186. Now again, that's in thousands of dollars. Okay, $186,000. So my mean is $190,000. Sorry, I got the line through here. My median is $186,000, and my mode is right there, $175,000. Okay, so now again, if on this one, this is pretty easy to see that the number that's in between here, that's halfway in between, is 186,000. So if you can do that in your head without adding them up and dividing by 2, that's also okay. Now I want to know which one of those best represents the data. Okay? Well, if I'm looking, okay, my mean, I'm going to go ahead and use my mean. Oops, is going to be my black pen right here. So my mean was $190,000. So $190,000 would be right here. Okay, my median, we'll use the red pen for that, was $186,000. Well, that's right in here, $186,000, right in the middle. Okay, and then my mode, we'll use the blue pen, is $175,000. That's way down here. Okay, and what I'm looking at here is this question asks, which measure should a researcher use to best represent the data? This is kind of an opinion question, but there are answers that are better than other ones. Okay, for example, the mode is 175,000. That does not represent the data very well, okay, because most of the numbers in the list are above it, and some of them are way above the mode. Okay, so if you reported this answer, that would make the houses seem a lot cheaper than they really are. Okay, then I'm looking at the median, and I'm looking at the mean, going, well, I know the median is directly in the middle. That's the middle number, okay? There are the same amount above it and the same amount below it. And the numbers that are below it aren't too terribly far below it, okay? This one's only 16 below it. And my highest number up here is over 30 above it, okay? So this data is more spread out up here. There's some really high numbers that are above this median. So I don't think the median represents it very well because there's some really expensive houses. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the mean on this one. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and move this up. And again, my reasoning for picking the mean here is because there are some really expensive houses. So I'm going to say the mean best represents the data. Now again, I justified it. I told you because there are some expensive houses. So I'm going to put that on here. If you would have said the median because it's dead in the middle number, I guess I couldn't fault you for that. Alright, because that's your opinion. But again, in this case, I really think the mean represents because of those high numbers that are up there. Because there are some expensive houses. So I think 190 kind of better represents in this case. Alright, and that is it. That is our lesson for this one. So any questions, make sure you ask them. Otherwise, happy homeworking.